Why WoW doesn't hit the same anymore. Oh, the nostalgia. I mean, just looking at this image right now, people used to live here. I've talked about, the OG days of WoW many times. As somebody who started playing back in 2005, you had 15-year-old Sam running through the forests of Elwyn, enjoying himself, getting fully immersed in a world that he had never seen before. My first ever MMO. It's a memorable time, a time that I'll never forget, and obviously a time that affected the rest of my life, because here I am now, freaking 36 and still playing this game. But let's get into this one here from Bellular. Why WoW doesn't hit the same anymore. Here we go.
Immersion is a word that's been dominating WoW discussion lately, and if you ask anyone about how immersive WoW used to be, you'll probably get the same kinds of answers.
Right,
that it felt like stepping through a portal to another world.
It did.
Just think about the original login screen. But if you ask about the last 10 years, I would reckon the answers would change. That WoW doesn't feel as real. That for some reason it feels more like a video game and less like a world that you're sucked into. Now, Krendor and Nixium both released videos on this topic recently, and with very different takes. So I figured we should throw our hat in the ring. And that's because everyone is blaming the same suspects. Flying, teleports, an endgame focus. But here's what we realized when we dug through decades of research and scientific publications. Almost everyone's been getting this topic wrong for over 20 years. Because why isn't WoW as immersive anymore is actually the wrong question entirely. WoW's true secret sauce was something else, and one paper from 2005 is a big part of why we forgot it.
Ooh, immersion is not the end. Okay. Well, I mean, I would say in general, freaking life doesn't feel immersive anymore. Feels like we're all just NPCs sometimes. Or it feels like everybody else. You ever look around at work or whatever and you're like, God, everybody here's an NPC. What the hell's going on? Am I the only one is this a fucking Matrix vision that I've created myself? I don't know what's going on. Damn Harambe. Yeah, it's ever since Harambe. You're right. Harambe was the cataclysm of our lives. And ever since then, nothing feels real anymore. That's a good point, Ostitute. No, but in all seriousness, it does feel like the world feels a little bit gray, a little bit less colorful. And it does feel like immersion is a little bit out, especially in all video games. I don't think it's just WoW. I think in general, it is a little bit hard these days to get lost in a game. And I don't know what it is. We're oversaturated with shit. We've been there, done that too many times. I have no idea. But it definitely things do feel less immersive for sure.
In 2005, a paper hit the games industry with one goal: to define immersion in a way games could use going forward. They succeeded, by the way, with almost 1,200 other papers citing it since. Now, their model had three components: sensory, challenge-based, and imaginative. Which all seem self-explanatory, right? Azeroth's beautiful landscapes hit you with a sense of scale. The ambience made it feel vibrant and real. Exploring dense caves full of mobs with an incredibly responsive combat system just invited you to lock in. And then, the feeling of the big, empty world full of mystery and history, it wormed its way into.
It didn't just feel like a big, empty world. It felt like a very dangerous world, too. Like, around every corner, there was a threat that could kill you. I mean, we were just playing hardcore. I played hardcore a couple of days recently on stream, and besides the fact that, yes, if you die, it's over, and that's what makes hardcore extra scary. In general, playing vanilla WoW felt that way because it was. Like, the world was very dangerous. Any Murloc could fuck you up. I mean, now in endgame WoW, and, really, the world is a joke. You walk around, you could pull an entire zone and freaking cheek clap everything that exists all at once, and it's not going to really scare you, hurt you, or threaten you in any meaningful way. And that's why I think like the Great Reset, the post-World Soul Saga reset that could hit, could be a big deal, because it could make the world feel dangerous again. It could be a way for Blizzard to kind of ground everything back into the old ways of doing things and making things that not necessarily everything has to be a big galactic level threat to be dangerous to you anymore.
Your mind. So there you go. WoW is immersive by all three categories, right? Job done. Not quite.
Yeah, he played with us there. I was like, what the end screen?
Rewrote history, and it changed how the industry and all of us talk about immersion forever. And as a result, we left something behind. And for Blizzard, well, it was maybe the most important part of World of Warcraft. You see, we found something far stronger than immersion. Stronger may not be the ideal word. Rather, it is foundational to immersion being possible in a game like World of Warcraft. You see, you can get lost in a half-decent movie or video
And
game,
so it
but you
begins.
always come back out at the end, right? You leave the cinema. But the thing about WoW is, it really seemed to take it one step further. Immersion just doesn't describe how Classic hit the world harder than any game
there
before,
more.
to the point where people would be playing WoW like 20 hours a day, often leading to medical incidents and viral news stories.
Oh, the medical incidents. Oh my! I remember my mom brought up the story of like the Korean kid that didn't go shit for a week or something and died. You guys remember that stuff? I don't even know if any of that stuff was real anymore. But there were like always these stories about kids dying playing WoW because they refused to shit or something. I don't know what it was about it. Like, but yeah, playing WoW 19 hours a day, shit, man. I used to play. I used to have my streaks. You know, my parents would get mad at me. Wake up in the morning and just play through the night. Yeah, those were good times. Some of it was real. I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. But you always had the concerned boomer parents like, oh my God, my kid's going to stop shitting and die too if they keep playing this game. And you had all the news, you know, because MMOs were not mainstream until WoW came out. So like you'd have like Fox News showing up or CNN doing an article about the addiction of this new game called World of Warcraft and how it's going to wreck society. Yeah, it kind of did. Maybe wrecked us a little bit. But hey, it kept you out of trouble, right? That's what I used to tell my mom. Like, would you rather me be out doing drugs or playing WoW at home where you know I'm safe? She'd be like, oh, good point. Play WoW.
And the way it felt is whenever you left Azeroth, you almost always wanted to leap right back into it, or think about when you could. You would plan your next session, think about your character, think about the people you're playing with. And
Drugs
people
for
are
sure,
core.
yeah.
We all shared a feeling that Azeroth is a real place. The sense that things that went on in it mattered, that things would persist, that consequences would matter, and that you're going to Azeroth, rather than just playing a video game. And that one step further.
Most people do both now. They do drugs and play WoW. True. Yeah, there's a good story about that. I remember playing Classic with a dwarf. I'll never forget his face. He had the angry dwarf face. This is Classic WoW, and he was tanking, and we were in Ventrilo. And this guy was like talking about how high he was and how he could only tank when he was high. I've told this story on stream before because he said he would get so high that he would believe he was in the game. This is ultimate immersion. And he would tank better because he would believe that if he dies, he's going to die, like in real life. Like his life is on the line. So he said he would have to be ultra high to be able to tank properly. So that way he would feel like his life was in danger, which would make him play at a higher level. His name was Romo Dog. I never forget it. Dwarf Warrior. Big dick dwarf warrior. Great tank.
An immersion has a name. It's actually a feeling. And it is one called presence. And presence is what we've forgotten. But first, a quick Linuxy tangent for anyone who's opened up a terminal, saw the blinking cursor, and quietly closed it again. This video sponsor,
boot.dev, there you
has
go.
done something awesome. They've just rebuilt their Linux course to just make the whole world of Linux far less arcane.
Talk
Now, it
about
starts
immersion,
with a
the
real
code
shell
matrix,
running
yeah.
in your browser, so you can break things without, breaking your machine. But then it moves onto your own local terminal. And in just this one module in Linux, you're getting 64 lessons, about 10 hours, and it's covering the file system, processes, users, permissions, and what the likes of, say,
sounds
root
interesting.
and sudo actually do. And that last part does matter. Plenty of people type sudo because a forum post told them to do it, which could get you in a spot of bother if you don't really know what's going on. This teaches you all that missing context, what you're granting, and when you shouldn't be reaching for the nuclear option.
Or use
If you're
AI.
considering
Yeah,
dev work,
vibe
this
code,
is
right?
just essential. I mean, thanks to Claude Code, I've spent a fair amount of time in the terminal now, to the point where, honestly, it does kind of feel like a little magic box I can operate with my fingers that'll take me anywhere on my PC.
Amazing.
So,
how you
be
are.
it learning how to operate the terminal, or maybe learning about Linux, or maybe even learning Git, or of course, the likes of, say, the actual programming, the Python, etc. Well, Boot has got you covered for all of that. And the best thing is, you can actually just go right to their course page and look at everything for free. It's awesome. And to make it even better, Boot
Amazing.
is structured
This
like
is
an
crazy.
RPG.
Mind
It
blown.
just feels so damn good and slick to use. So, scan the QR code or use code BELLULAR at boot.dev to get 25% off your
There it is.
entire
Use the
first
man's
year
code.
on an annual plan. Presence, or telepresence, predates World of Warcraft, and it predates just about anyone watching this video. It's actually said to come from a 1940s sci-fi story called Waldo, which is about a
I don't know
severely
what this
disabled
is.
man who invented remote-controlled robot hands to do what his own hands couldn't.
Interesting.
It's obvious to us now, but remote control was a genuinely groundbreaking bit of tech back then. Waldo, with this technology, was able to exist somewhere that his body...
Science fiction, that's funny. Becoming fiction, right? That's crazy. All these old books now, they're like, oh, that's real, this exists now. That's why I say, like, Ready Player One and shit, that's science fiction. Probably won't be for much longer. Going into virtual worlds and shit, collecting your stuff, everybody just always having freaking VR goggles on and stuff.
couldn't. Now, that's the core of telepresence, and it's an idea that struck with readers of that story. Readers like Marvin Minsky, the man who established MIT's AI lab and who is one of the fathers of AI. Of course, I mean that in the computer science sense, so very much back before people just thought AI, oh, ChatGPT. Now, Marvin's part of this video because of his pioneering essay on telepresence, which cemented the idea in futurist thought of workers using robots in dangerous environments, technology letting you exist somewhere that your body couldn't. Now, the first application of this was a little bit less inspired, but it was quite funny. It was a company called Teleport, founded in 1993, that sold video conferencing as teleportation, where executives could be somewhere beautiful and technology would beam them away from their boring boardrooms. Laughable now, but it forced the question that really matters for this video. How?
Video calling, that's a breakthrough, yep. But records basically are disks and stored data, yep. Star Trek predicted things like CDs and DVDs back in the 60s, yeah. Yeah, I mean, video calling and shit. How many things were predicted by James Bond movies and stuff? I mean, he had a watch that he was talking to, right? Yeah, okay. I'm wearing one right now. I can make a phone call.
How could technology
all that
make
stuff's
you
real now.
Feel presence, like you were truly somewhere else? Well, in 1997, two researchers set out to figure out what this feeling was. And here's what they found. Presence has 6 components, and this is where things get weird and interesting.
This is sciencey
and that's because immersion, as we know it, was only one part of the whole thing. Another one was realism, and it came in 2 flavors, where presence comes from something being realistic to the real world, but also from something called perceptual realism, which basically is the thing being realistic to itself. Now, you kind of could have guessed those things already, and it's really the other 4 that...
I think that's what a lot of what, regular vanilla World of Warcraft had and classic WoW had, was that perceptual realism and social realism, because the world was so filled with people. Like, I remember it was mind-blowing to me, and that an MMO, like, I would tell my dad would come, he'd be looking over my shoulder, what are you playing? I'm playing World of Warcraft, Dad. Oh, really? And I'll be like, yeah, all these people are real people. I remember I'd be jumping around in Ironforge, just running around. He'd be like, oh, really? Those are all other people playing right now? I'm like, yeah, these are other people playing right now. And it was like a mind-blowing concept, like, oh, shit, we're all playing in one giant world together. And I think that social realism was a big part of what made WoW very popular. What a liar. No, I was not lying. That was true. True story. Yeah. I'm going to marry a robot. Yeah, that's going to be a thing too, I'm sure. Robotic vaginas. Why not?
The other 4 that set WoW apart. You know the way we would just jump at each other in WoW, or maybe throw a buff on a random player running past us?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that is actually what the research calls intimacy. And along with immediacy, it is a key part of, quote, presence as social richness. Of course, to our social human brains, that richness makes us feel there and present. If you throw a heal to help a player as you run past, they might whisper back and say thanks.
Yeah.
That's presence. Specifically, it's when the interaction feels, quote, sociable, warm, sensitive, personal, or intimate. Now, the next 2 parts can be bundled together. There is presence as a social actor within the medium, and then there's the reverse of that, which basically is parasocial behavior, aimed at something in the game or at the game itself. And that can be as simple as you literally thanking your pet for saving your life because your pet got a crit, or maybe cursing the game for refusing to drop your item. Essentially, the more social engagement with the game, parasocial included, the stronger the sense of presence. But then the final part is maybe the most important, because it's what ties all of this together, and it is presence as teleportation. In other words, what takes you from your computer chair to Azeroth itself? Well, these researchers determined that being transported actually has three components. There is You Are There, which is the bit we usually laser focus on today. And certainly all the conversation about flying mounts, quest markers, and too much revealed lore kind of falls into that. And what this first of our three components also covers is pretty much all the immersive stuff we've talked about so far and the social stuff. Basic idea that the more you impact the world, the more you embody your character. It's all presence as transportation. But let's get to the second. The second is called It Is Here. And it's quite funny. It is, as an example, early film audiences fleeing from an oncoming train because they hadn't really seen a film before, and the idea of a train hurtling towards them felt really weird. That's a fun little one. And
it's like when the modern day example of that is probably when someone puts on VR goggles for the first time, or VR headset, and then they you've seen the videos of them falling over, or they scream when they get pushed over a ledge or something like that, because it's just it breaks their brain the first time they're experiencing it. So he talks about that example, a train oncoming in a movie, and people running away from the screen because it's just it's breaking their brain. They don't have a concept of that kind of tech yet. It's interesting. The VR stuff, J-Wall says, not really successful. Is it many people get sick using those goggles? That's because we're still really on such an early iteration of that technology in general. I don't think you see mass adoption of things until you're on the second, third, fourth generation. And that's really when it takes off. I mean, like I said, even my watch, this is not the first watch with a screen that ever existed. It just took a long time for it to make technical sense. For it to be at a point where it makes sense to wear it, where it's actually useful. The more clear these VR screens get and stuff, the less you'll have that kind of motion sickness and stuff like that. Well, I'm sure VR goggles and shit like that eventually are going to get to a technological point or breakthrough. And I think probably AR is even more important because that's probably going to break through first. Augmented reality is what I'm talking about. When the tech gets far enough along, you're going to see it become more of a norm. I mean, I feel like more and more people now are wearing the Meta glasses and shit, whereas before it was a gimmick to have a camera on your glasses. Now there's all these first-person videos all over YouTube of people just wearing freaking Meta glasses and shit, or the Snapchat glasses or whatever. It's becoming more and more normal.
Hey, if you pop on a VR headset and something is so realistic it actually spooks you out, maybe you're feeling some of that. But for us, what really matters is the third component. And that component is we are together. That's what they call it. And you see,
this realm.
Sup, dude? Thank you for the follow. Welcome to our Scourge.
Researchers found that the presence of other people in a virtual environment was a major component of feeling transported to that environment. Basically, the more you feel like you share that virtual world with other people, well, because you know those people are real, then the more real that place feels.
True.
And of course, the researchers, were only talking about 1995's version of Zoom calls. Imagine what they'd say about World of Warcraft. So, what we've learned here is that presence goes beyond just immersion. It goes beyond the game having challenge and having
goes beyond
graphics and
graphics
visuals that just feel really authentic to itself. No, presence is what gives us that sense of Azeroth as a real place. It's the feeling that you were going there, not just playing a game. And when we think about World of Warcraft as a cultural phenomenon,
this episode,
WoW was as big as it was because it felt like more than a game. Above anything else, it is that it was a world that mattered. And I think everyone intuitively knows that. Do you know who's one of those people?
Holly Longdale?
Holly Longdale gets it, though if she hasn't seen the research and stuff we've talked about today, then she may not actually know that she gets it. But it's certainly good news that she gets it. Now let me explain how we know that. In a WoW Discord Q&A back in March, Holly talked about World of Warcraft's role as what's called a third place. Now what does she mean by third place?
Yeah.
Well, the first place is your home, where you spend time with your family, where you do a lot of your life. The second place is work or school, essentially the place you're obligated to be.
Yeah.
The third place, then, is a public place you choose to be. And when this term was popularized in 1989, it referred to things like, say, churches, bars, and cafes. The short explanation is that a third place is somewhere that is fun, convenient, open, and most importantly, social. So if you hung out at the mall as a teenager, the mall was your third place. If you played World of Warcraft, Azeroth was your third place.
Sure
and if
was.
you played World of Warcraft in the earlier days, it wasn't Azeroth that was your third space, it was your server. because back then servers
Yeah,
mattered.
they were locked,
You
yeah.
would run into the same people in general
That's
chat
true.
and in town. For a lot of us then,
I've talked about it. Like, there were people, I played Alliance, there were people on the Horde that used to gank all the time, and I knew who they were. Like, I knew those people because they were locked in on my server. Servers were a real thing back then. I mean, you were walled in just to play with the people on your server, both Horde and Alliance. You got to know people, and you knew there were famous people on your server, the people that everybody knew. I talk about Broadzilla all the time, that fucking druid that just spent time all day killing all the fucking Alliance on Quel'Danas as we tried to freaking quest and get our flying mounts. Like, that was a thing, and everybody knew that fucking guy. And even if you weren't on the Alliance, you couldn't even talk to him because remember there was language barriers in the game too between Horde and Alliance. You could not talk to each other. And this guy was just around there, you know, freaking killing people nonstop, piece of shit. But I remember him because he was server locked. He was on my server. I talk about it, you know, all the time, all the cross server shit. You know, if Blizzard could go to a mega server one day, that would be amazing. But there's all this sharding and stuff. I do feel like stuff like that does hurt the game.
your guild would also become
You
your
still know
found
his name? That's
family,
great.
who
Yeah, I'll never
may
forget
as
it.
well have been people who literally live in Azeroth, because that's where you'd all hang out together. And for a poignant, real example of that, look at the story of Iblin. By all accounts, he lived a rich life with his guild that, because of the challenges he faced in real life, basically otherwise impossible for him. But look what WoW was able to give him. Now, of course,
There's still language barriers, you cuck. Yes, I'm aware.
it wasn't only WoW. Sometimes guildies would be on forums, or maybe MSN Messenger, or
Oh, man.
AIM.
That
But
sound.
it was still on your
Throwback.
PC that you logged into WoW with. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to go on a misty-eyed rant about the past here. But this stuff is a large part of what made Azeroth real, and a 2006 paper actually delved into online games as third places and came to the conclusion that they absolutely definitely are, which I think does seem obvious to all of us by now. So, World of Warcraft established presence, and so it became your third place, where you lived out part of your life, a part that, as opposed to the first and second space, was one that you very much actively chose because it was your discretionary free time.
Right.
Now, that sense of place.
Do you guys remember another thing about Horde and Alliance back then? You could not have an Alliance and a Horde tune on the same server. Like, if you once you chose a side on a server, you were locked in, and you could not flip flop. So, like, I remember if like the Alliance was planning to raid, you know, a village or something like that. This shit used to happen. We're gonna go take over Torin Mill. There, you could not have somebody make be on the Alliance and make a Horde tune and then go warn everybody that the Alliance is coming. You know that you couldn't do that back then. Now you could, yeah, cross faction easily on the same server. Doesn't matter. It's all wishy washy. But before there were hard lines. Like if you played a certain what's it called, Alliance or Horde character, you were it, and there was no transferring between Horde and Alliance, and that you wanted to fucking make a new character. It was time to make a new character and level that shit up.
Socially is
Torin
what
Mill,
made
yes.
all that social presence and, as we covered earlier in the video, transportation stick. And in ways that it just doesn't today. All those immersive details we've talked about over the years do matter, but nothing matters more than WoW feeling like a real place that we go to. But sadly, since at least Cataclysm, Blizzard have known that they're making a game, not a world. Now, I think Holly intuitively understands that, and Holly does want WoW to be a third place again. She's literally talked about it. So the question is then, is that even possible? Take a look at this recent Reddit thread that popped off. It raised the argument that always comes up when anyone gets too nostalgic. Do we all just miss that time in our lives when we played WoW, when we had less responsibilities, and really
Yeah.
Azeroth was the main thing we cared about? And honestly,
Maybe what does this say? Sometimes I think I miss Vanilla, Wrath, or Legion. That I miss. Maybe I just miss coming home after school, logging in with friends, and having nothing else to worry about. Curious what everyone else thinks. Yeah, of course. We all miss a time when we had less responsibilities. Yeah, I definitely think that's part of it. Nostalgia is very rose-colored glasses, right? Like you remember the good things. You're not gonna have nostalgia for bad things or bad moments. You tend to store those away somewhere else. So yeah, certainly I think part of why our generation in particular, a lot of guys like in my age group, which is like, you know, we're mid-30s, a lot of us have a lot of nostalgia for World of Warcraft because it launched in a period in our life where we just had no responsibilities. We were all like young teenagers. fledgling teenagers. So we really didn't have anything else to do or worry about. And I think that kind of ties into a lot of the nostalgia that a lot of people my age at least feel for a while.
Responsibilities, and really Azeroth was the main thing we cared about. And honestly, it's not much of an argument because to most of us, it is obviously true, and obviously
Yeah,
a
it's
major
true.
part of the discussion. You probably have, these days, less time and more responsibility. And even science backs that up. They measure your ability to get immersed with a trait that they call absorption. And that trait, absorption, has been shown to decrease just a little bit with age. That's only a small part of it, though.
Huh.
There is, of course, an elephant hiding in your pocket. I know, it may come as a shock. It's called your phone.
Oh,
We're all pretty much mind broken by the attention economy these days.
yeah.
If you play WoW without a second monitor or a podcast playing, you're definitely in the minority. And I think to some of us, playing WoW with just
Second monitor? Second monitor? What the fuck is he talking about? What is he talking about? Get on my level, Bellular. Second monitor, rookie ass shit. Come on. What year are we in? 2026? Come on. Ooh, 19 fucking 55? I don't know. Second monitor. Jesus, that sounds like rookie numbers. All right. Enough showing off.
the in-game sounds may feel like being sonically naked. I mean, if you told me that you don't alt-tab all the time or don't pick up your phone during a long flight, I'd struggle to believe you. Now, this is of course not a new problem, but it is worse than it's ever been. Back in the classic days, you probably had one monitor. Your PC probably struggled
did.
to alt-tab out of WoW, never mind run a picture-in-picture video or podcast. Your phone, if you had one, wasn't a full multimedia device full of algorithmically driven feeds and gambling apps and bullshit to scroll through. Maybe you had a podcast or some music on, but generally, you were more focused, immersed,
That's true.
present. Your attention constantly being pulled away kills that immersion, and by doing so, it kills the sense of presence. Because if you're checking your phone, you're not in Azeroth. You can't fully
Yeah,
enjoy WoW or
that's true.
anything if you're not present in the experience. That's something society.
It even happens with TV shows. Any of you guys ever watching like a show and you're into it, you like it, and then you kind of look at your phone and you pull it up and you start scrolling a little bit, and then before you know it, like 10 minutes have passed in the show, and then you're like, oh fuck it, you got to rewind and get back into it because you clearly missed some kind of plot point or something. It happens to me. And I'll be like, oh, this is kind of a boring scene. Just for a second, I'll just look. And then pretty soon something major, I'll like, oh shit, I missed something. And I got to rewind the show. Yeah, phones are so damn distracting, I swear. I am happy to have grown up in the time that I did where that shit didn't exist. I always say, I think 90s kids, we grew up in a special era where like tech existed, which means things like WoW existed and Nintendo 64 and all that shit, but it wasn't to the stage where it was like all consuming. Like we still played outside and shit. It was like the Goldilocks era. Hey, we got technology, but it's not good enough to take over your entire life yet. So there was like a balance back then, a natural balance. Now we're very much in just it's all tech. Shove a chip up our asses real soon.
Largely has to grapple with. Crucially, it's something that WoW has to fight for. If WoW slows down, there's ways that could be a better game.
Yep, Solo, so did I.
The more attention-grabbing things around you will eat WoW's lunch. And that is a part of why Hardcore Classic is actually so beloved, because the stakes, being so high, force you to focus. It's also why modern WoW feels like an endless deluge of bite-sized content. It's because it kind of has to be bite-sized content in order to survive in the modern environment. At least, that seems to be Blizzard's hypothesis. Now, all that technological and cultural change means that modern WoW can never risk trying to be a full world. Now, on the bright side, it can continue being a damn good game. But Holly, I don't think the third place plan can really work as good as I think we all wish it could. And there is one giant thing blocking the path to that.
The third place
Azeroth
is
could never
dead.
be a third place because the internet is no longer really a place. Your phone is in your pocket at all times. You probably have a laptop. You have a legion of alts, none of whom are your virtual self. Not in the way that back in the day you'd have a character in a big online game and it would be your avatar. No. Back in the 90s, people were collectively obsessed with the internet as a different world. The novel Snow Crash gave the metaverse its name and its shape.
What the hell was this? Comcast high-speed internet, 1,500K. Oh, shit.
world.
Big
The
dick
novel
speeds.
Snow Crash gave the metaverse its name and its shape all the way back in 1992. Then hackers in 1995 visualized the internet as a radical 3D space. And as MMOs started to show up, they got the same treatment. Second Life's name kind of speaks for itself. And take a look
Right,
at
I
this.
remember that
The
game.
anime.hack sign was about mystery and relationships in a fictional MMO that was literally called The World. You see, back then, you had to sit at your chunky PC, perform the ritual of dial-up connection, and then transport
True.
yourself. And the way we talked about it back then was of you going online. Of course, these days, you've actually got to make effort to be offline, because online is kind of the default. Really, with phones,
Yeah.
the internet and reality have merged.
Seriously, I mean, nobody says anymore, I'm going online. I'm online. It's really like people talk about unplugging these days because you're always fucking online. Like the second you wake up, you grab your phone, you look at you're online. You're online. Today's really what people mention is the big deal is like, oh, I'm going offline, bro. I'm going off grid. I'm just disconnecting. Like those are the terms that we use today. That's the big deal. Going online is not a big deal anymore. You're default online, like you said.
And if you take a look into the research around embodied intelligence and a bunch of things like that and tool use, oh boy, the way that we all do literally just walk around with our phones just always attached to our hands, it's a little bit spooky. And it's spooky for WoW. You see, social media has bridged the entire world, such that we can all exist together in one lovely big blend of offline and online. Now, you might still live an online-heavy life and have online friends, but they don't feel like they live in a different world. They just feel like people far away. You talk to them on Discord or Battle.net with the little box that lives in your pocket. And what we see is that modern...
There's so many people in my freaking in my chat right now from like Australia and Canada and Europe and stuff. It's like, and I don't feel like they're in other places in the world. I just feel like they're here in the chat. You know, we're all on the planet Earth. He's right. It has made the world feel much. It's smaller in general. Nothing feels very far. Nobody feels very far away. They just feel like they're not here in the room. But it does feel like I'm just chatting with you guys.
Culture doesn't.
And it's pretty much instant.
See game worlds or even the internet as a unique and distinct place in the same way that we used to see it 20 or 30 years ago. Now, you could argue that small Discord servers are, in some way, one of the last true digital third spaces left. And here's a fascinating thing that backs that up. The actual research on what a third space is reports this, where researchers have noticed that adding competitive, sports-like elements instead of, say, free play actually breaks what a third space is.
Yeah,
now, if you take a look at any of the major social media platforms, what do you see? Well, technically, they're social.
I agree. I think the least immersive part of WoW is Mythic Plus. I definitely feel that because that's such a highly competitive, driven, timer-based environment. I don't feel immersed. I just feel like the crank up of anxiety and I got to do this and I got to kill this shit. Dude, that's why I love questing. And I tell you guys that all the time. My favorite part of an expansion is the early part where you're questing through new zones. It's because that's fully immersive. There's no pressure. You're just doing it. And you're just reading the stories and enjoying the moment and taking in the music and taking in the environments and getting into all of it. Whereas Mythic Plus, all of that goes away. I don't give a fuck what the mob looks like. I don't care what the story of the dungeon is. It doesn't matter. I'm just doing this shit because I got to time the key and I got to pull the correct mob at the right time and do the mechanics and kill all the shit. It's a dark pattern of treadmill of WoW. Yeah, it is. It is. It's great that it creates repeatable, playable content for sure. But immersive wise, it's completely opposite of immersive. It's immersive breaking. That's what it is.
Hangouts, but the objectives of you as a poster are kind of different. I mean, on Twitter, what do people want? They want big numbers. That's why Discord does stand out as one of the last bastions of the third space, because it is your own Discord server and community. Now, with all that established, let's get back to WoW. WoW's position as being game first, social hangout second, kind of disqualifies it. And it's the same with basically every other MMO in the market these days. It's almost as if game and place are on a spectrum, and every decision made toward game can end up moving you away from place, away from the presence that made WoW feel so special. Now, that may sound a little bit weird and academic, but just think about it this way. Think about the verbs that we tend to use. You don't meet your friends in World of Warcraft. You play WoW with them while you hang out in Discord. Discord is a place, the
It's
other
kind of
thing
true.
is just a game you're playing. Now,
Even
obviously,
even Twitch, and I don't know about you guys and how you watch my stream. I think a lot of you do this, but a lot of times I would pull up a WoW streamer and I would play while I'm listening to them stream, or I got them on a separate monitor. Like I'm playing while watching them stream. It's almost like I parasocially playing with them. I don't know, maybe like a weird thing like that, but it feels like even though maybe you're playing WoW solo, like you're kind of playing the game alone, like you're not playing the game alone because the entire Twitch community that's watching the guy and the guy that you're watching are playing too. That's kind of how it works. And yeah, Discord's the same thing. Like get in Discord with a bunch of guys. You're like, yeah, let's play some WoW, and you're playing WoW. Really, you're hanging out in Discord while playing WoW. You're not really hanging out in WoW.
Ventrilo and TeamSpeak existed long before, but they were always secondary. Guild chat was always first. Now, though, Discord has taken over as the primary social hangout. Everyone is on Discord before they're on WoW together. And the way Blizzard are introducing Discord to World of Warcraft's guild chat proves that Blizzard knows that. It's a brilliant move, but it's
Just
also
hate
a
watching
white flag.
count. Yes.
Discord won. Blizzard has had to give up and acquiesce. They know
Discord
is
integration's
where people
coming,
hang out
boys.
by default, so now WoW is just going to plug itself into that. Because WoW cannot replace Discord anymore. Basically, Discord won, and now WoW is growing dependent on Discord to function socially. Even if, say, housing is massively successful and people hang out in and around their houses, well, the reagents for that third place magic just do not exist in the same way that they used to, not back in the day, and for all the reasons and the research that we've went through today. At the very least, not on the scale that Holly seems to want. So, it seems then that while WoW can be immersive when you
It's a great story,
turn all
Hasa,
your
too.
extra music and podcasts off and you just enjoy the landscapes and the verse and the art and the sound, well, for presence, is there any hope?
Game locked.
WoW can never be a proper
eternal
third
realm.
place, not with how the internet works today. And I mean that in general. If you want WoW to be able to function as a third space, I would say get into role-playing and find an RP server that takes that
RP server is
seriously.
probably the closest
But
thing
for the rest of us,
to a
no,
third
WoW
space.
is not going to become a third place in the way that it used to. But the silver lining is that the presence that modern WoW has abandoned is still possible. And how we know that is WoW Classic. You see, a study published in 2022 surveyed players on what they felt from Classic's relaunch. Nostalgia, of course, was there, but more importantly, the social presence and what's called sense of place were massive for these people.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, I'm not a classic Andy by any means. I don't play classic WoW. Yes, I did some hardcore recently, like, because I beat retail. I beat everything in retail. There's nothing left for me to do until the next season starts. And one thing that you guys, maybe you caught it on stream, maybe you didn't, but I was in Elwyn Forest just doing some quests, right? And then this paladin runs by me and gives me a buff. And then they continue to run by, and I type thanks. I was like, oh man, hey, thanks for the buff. That caught me off guard because it doesn't happen in retail anymore. Like those interactions just don't. Classic, it just lends itself to more social interaction. It's also the servers are closed off, so you're just sitting there on your server and people are interacting with each other and doing stuff together. Whereas retail is it's a bit more of a solo experience. It is. I don't remember the last time that I was questing in retail and somebody ran by me and buffed me. Like it's a minor experience, and I know it's not like this big groundbreaking thing that just happened, but it's those little things that kind of create more immersion. And that's why Classic really just does. It just does more. Retail buffs are not as powerful as Classic buffs, though. That's true. That's true. But for some reason, just those minor interactions, they just happen more in the Classic environment.
Found a promising trend.
I think people like it.
These two things were actually linked. That when players felt more social presence,
you paid for mage for portals. Yeah, I mean, I used to pay for food. I still remember that. I literally remember /2 in trade chat, and I was in Nagrand, right? Collecting Talbuck poop and doing all the shit I was doing in Burning Crusade and Nagrand. And I remember distinctly reaching out to, I was /2ing all the mages in Nagrand so I could pay one of them for food. I still remember that till this day. I don't know why that interaction just like that came to my head, But I remember I met a mage, and I still remember his name because he became like my go-to for food. His name was Westerling. He was a green-haired gnome mage, and I remember finding him in Nagran, and I was like, "Hey, dude," and I asked him, I was like, "Can I add you to my friends list?" And I remember paying it. I used to use him for portals and freaking food all the time. If I ever found him, I was like, "Hey, Westerling's online. Let me get some food before I start questing." And that was a normal interaction back then that you used to have.
They felt a stronger sense of place within Azeroth. Now, for a second, this is going to get really weird. You see, for those actively playing Classic, what ended up happening
They're
is
real.
that
They're
sense
real
of
names.
place actually weakened. Now, the researchers suggest that this is down to revisiting the game with way more of a gameplay focus. And that does track whenever you watch, say, other content creators trying out WoW for the first time. For one example, GBay99 has been documenting his dive into Warcraft with a fresh eye, and he's thoroughly enjoying it in many of the ways that people did back in 2004. If then there was a new Classic, divorced from nostalgia and less gameplay focused in the way that we see gameplay today, which I would argue is more narrow than it was in the past, then it might...
These are authentic stories, you dicks. Okay, I'm opening up to you guys. I'm revealing Samiccus memories from back in the day. And you guys are saying it's all fake ass shit.
Death Knight.
Zonk, thank you for the...
Andes get mad at everything though. Lol.
It's true, man. Thank you for the Prime sub 2 months in a row. I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. Death Knight of our Scourge. Classic Andes are a special bunch. I'm just a WoW Andy. Like, I mostly play retail. Like 99% of the time I'm playing retail. Every once in a while I'll jump into Classic if there's nothing really going on in retail anymore. And that's why I was doing some hardcore recently. I can appreciate Classic for what it is. It was a very good game. It was. But I played it back when it was retail. And I prefer to play retail.
might stand a chance of emulating that original launch.
I hope they can
How?
bring more of what makes Classic great to retail. That's my ultimate wish. And that's why I hope the Great Reset, like after the World Soul Saga, what I think is going to happen, I do hope that happens. I hope they go back to a more classic version of the game in retail. I think that would be nice to see and bring back some of the more social aspects of the game, almost.
But too much pressure on the devs here, but Classic Plus. You see, if Modern WoW is locked into being a season-based, gameplay-focused game, big capital G, all caps
What's up,
underlined,
Tin?
that's super engaging second to second to second, then Classic Plus can be something different. Classic Plus can be a world. And
Yeah.
Blizzard did not pick the Camelot codename by accident. It is, of course, King Arthur's mythological castle, often considered an eternal utopia, and not in the milk and honey way, but in the fighting for chivalry until the bitter end way. That's an
Right.
exciting idea, and maybe it's just a cool name and they just want to make a game for the super attached endgame classic lovers, but I hope it's more than that. I hope they are going to make a real world instead. I think it'll never reach the heights of the original classic, also
Probably
known
not.
as World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
But that's just because we live in a different world now.
I was going to say, it was a different time, different place. A World of Warcraft really launched at like just perfect timing. You had Lord of the Rings really making like fantasy worlds very much mainstream, and that was taking off at the same time. I mean, I remember I got World of Warcraft because I wanted to be in the Lord of the Rings world. I wanted to immerse myself. I wanted to be Legolas, you know? And that's why I made a Night Elf Hunter, my first character I ever made. So that was the reason for me getting WoW, and I think a lot of people got WoW because of that. And then society just lended itself to spending more time on shit like this. It just did. Now everything's very much fast-paced, different world we live in. So could it find the same success today that it did back then? Probably not. But it doesn't need to be successful. It just needs to be a good game.
And I don't think it'll be able to fully achieve that for all the reasons I've laid out in this video. But I think it can be good. And I think it can have a sense of presence that is vastly beyond what we've had in modern WoW lately. But that doesn't mean that modern WoW cannot learn from all this research into presence. And should Blizzard need an opportunity and an excuse to do that, well, The Last Titan is the end of a big saga, so what better time to make some change? All that Blizzard has to do is read a dozen or so scientific papers from 30 years ago and integrate them into their game design. There you go. Easy as that.
Yeah.
People have been talking about immersion. That's good. I love to see it. But as we've learned today, Immersion is not even the half of it, because presence exists on a foundational layer. And if you focus only on immersion in that narrow sense, but not presence, then you'll get something that's cool, but you won't get that secret sauce that WoW exploded onto the world with in 2004.
Like I said, to try to get that secret sauce again, it's just not possible. You just don't have, to use the sauce analogy, some of those ingredients just don't exist anymore. They're just gone. You can try to use substitutes, maybe artificial flavors and things like that, but you'll never get that sauce again. It's just not going to happen. And that's okay. You don't have to have a really good game. Good games can exist today and not just be, have to be World of Warcraft all over again. This guy looks like fucking Westerling. He does, although he didn't have a mustache and beard. But you don't need it to be what Classic was. Classic was great for what it was in the time that it came out, and you'll never do that again. But you can still make a really good MMO today that's successful in a different way.
So there you have it. The roadmap to fixing up this problem, to getting more presence, is to quite simply look into the science behind presence. Look into the ways in which older versions of WoW were able to get that presence, work them into the modern game, and just continue pushing and pushing and pushing, all to make Azeroth feel like it is another world that really exists, that you can access via your computer screen.
Amazing.
And not just a game that you can play as a seasonal gaming gigapumper who's just trying to push rating.
Right.
Because while that is a cool thing you can do in WoW, WoW at its best has always been far more than just that narrow end game progression focus. That's what it has to be again.
Amazing. Great story. Interesting takes on a lot of this stuff. And yeah, it's nostalgic as shit, man. A lot of us have been playing this game since we were teenagers. And I did too, and I talked about it. Like, that was just a good time in your life, obviously. No worries, nothing else to do. But just basically jerk off and play WoW all day. I mean, that just sounds like a good time. So will it continue to be? Well, what's the future of WoW look like? I mean, I talk about the Great Reset all the time and what comes after the World Soul Saga. And I do think Blizzard, for one, has realized what made Classic great with the relaunch of it. Right? What made Vanilla WoW great? I think a lot of people at Blizzard were, one, reminded of what made Classic great with the relaunch of it, and then two, maybe taught what made Classic great, because a lot of the employees that are currently at Blizzard weren't around when Classic came out, right? So they were like, almost like, oh, this is the game, the OG game that I hear about those old retired guys talk about. This is why this game's good, and they play it themselves and they realize, and hopefully they bring some of those lessons into retail. That's my hope out of what Classic has done for WoW. Not that everybody goes and plays Classic, but that it teaches or reteaches Blizzard what made WoW great, so they can bring that back to retail. Nice video overall from Bellular.